Did you see John Hinckley had a lot of very concerned words to offer after the White House Correspondents' Dinner?
No, did he really?
Yeah. He was just like, there was just no security there. No one was protecting the building.
John Hinckley, voice of reason, always a problem. Hello, and welcome to Expected Own Goals, More Than a Feeling edition. I am your host, Eric Morgan.
And I am Evan Davis. Indeed, Boston Legacy have a win.
Indeed.
Their very first win in franchise history. So we thought it was appropriate to tee it off for our featured game of the week. The 2026 expansion derby between the Legacy and Denver Summit finished 3-2 in extraordinarily dramatic fashion. Boston, I think, is becoming quite interesting for a great number of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
This win has been actually kind of a few weeks coming.
This week for Boston has been something else. They began with getting absolutely jobbed against the Chicago Red Stars, where they should have gotten their first win last weekend. They then had a win taken from them and turned into a frustrating draw midweek. And in this game, for the first, 98 minutes, it kind of seemed like they weren't going to get the result they deserved yet again. But the Boston Legacy came back from the international break and have been playing, dare I say, really good soccer.
Really good soccer that has, some caveats to it. They have played the easiest schedule of any team in the league up to this point. 5 games at home, plus, opponents like Denver and Chicago that are not necessarily the class of the league. So it's not going to get any easier for them. And right now, after this 3-game week, they are projected for 29 points. So right now, given all the information that we do have, it's not as if it's all sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. But setting the strength of schedule stuff aside, they are sitting on 6th place on XG differential per game. And I think there's a lot of interesting things going on under the hood that we can talk about that found kind of lovely expression in the way that they just kind of hammered Denver over and over and over again.
Yeah, let's talk about this game first before we extrapolate into sort of like what these two teams are, because I think this also, it's a good check-in for where Denver is as well. This is kind of the expectations bowl. And I think that both of these teams have deceptive results on some level for the opening weeks of the season. And I think this game exposed, in Denver's case, potentially some flaws in how their team functions. Boston came out of the gates strong. Albacano, who has been a revelation over these past handful of games, misses a relatively easy chance early on. And then Denver get an early Yaz Ryan goal on a very low XG chance that beats Casey Murphy at the near post. It's a cannon and it's a great finish, but also I'm sure Murphy wants that one back. And it's not the kind of shot, if you're Boston, you're particularly afraid to give up. I'm sure Felipe Petau would have preferred her defenders close down Yasmin Ryan and make that chance more difficult. But if Yasmin Ryan's going to take a rip from 24 yards, most of the time, that's a fine thing to let her do. It's a possession-killing attempt. And instead, it puts Boston behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, which they have had to suffer through in the past. The ways in which Game State has bitten them before in both directions, the ways in which playing at a talent advantage has cost them, just none of it was really present. I mean, so much of what we've been trying to figure out with Boston in these first few games is like, how do you get your best attacking pieces working together? But Petau switched it up again. Aisata Traore started the game on the bench. Ella Stevens still isn't getting starting minutes. And so it was Amanda Gutierrez, Barbara Olivieri, and Nichelle Prince up top with Canyo underneath them. And there was multiple quality chances that involved rebounds, that involved second opportunities, that kind of told me, or at least made me feel like when they had the chance to punch through Devin Lynch and Delaney Sheehan in transition, they had numbers. And they used those numbers to ensure that, like, they gave themselves as many opportunities to score as they could. But as the game went on, you began to wonder, like, okay, can they figure this out? Can they figure this out? And then Nichelle Prince, just before halftime, gets the equalizer.
They have a great flurry of chances, not just the Kanye chance in the 5th minute, but they have a great flurry of chances early on in this game. And when Denver scores, it's kind of like, here we go again.
Yeah.
I can't believe this is happening again. Nichelle Prince ends up with a sort of like broken play headed goal back across the box and levels this. But it felt like the commentary was so insane about Denver like giving back this game going into the halftime. And then even worse in the second half, where after Tosh Flint scores another worldy of a chance, that one with technique that very few players can execute, that one unsavable. The narrative that you heard from the commentary was so much like, as Boston clawed their way back into this, like Denver squandering 3 points. These 3 points were never Denver's to have. They converted 2 really low probability chances, and Boston just kind of kept at it. Boston's shot map looks great, and Abby Smith, who has been excellent all year, finally just had a bang average game for herself.
And it should be noted that, like, beyond those first 10 minutes and, you know, Albacanio's moment later on in the first half and Nichelle Prince's equalizer, like, there was a real situation of, like, equivalent talent canceling itself out on each side. You know, like, it got, especially those first, basically those first, like, 45 minutes of the second half before Boston got their second equalizer, there was nothing going in either direction for either team. And, like, sure, they're both expansion teams. Both are probably not that good at the end of the day. The Lynch, Sheehan, Natasha Flint midfield couldn't really find its way through. The Annie Carrick, Josephine Hasbo, Albacanio midfield really couldn't find its way through. And Canio's moments often felt like they were devised from her individual technical ability rather than, like, any, like, healthy, cohesive integration into a tactical plan. I mean, what can we note? I mean, like, Boston, to their credit, probably didn't overexpose themselves, which they have done at times in the season, which has allowed them to get hit the other direction. That didn't really happen. Was Denver the team that was going to, like, expose them in that way? Maybe not, but they were persistent and then probably recognized that, like, given the game state and given the more fluid and attacking potency that they had on offer and the lack of severe talent deficit, why not take the game to them at home? And Traore, who has been of a pretty high level when she has played, was the perfect game changer to bring on and make that happen.
Yeah, I felt like Philippa Petau got her starting lineup right and then her subs right for this Denver game. Again, 3-game week, rotation matters.
Yeah.
And she got like a perfect sub appearance from Aissata Traore, who came on and understood exactly what the task was.
Yeah.
Bullied the defense for the second goal, and then played a brilliant flick-on backside header to Bianca St. George for the winner.
Yeah. I mean, the Traore goal is, like, itself not coming from, like, a super great chance, but, like...
But it's the way she got positioning. It was like Band of Light. Yeah.
Yeah. And so much of, like, what Traore's value has been is to, like, use that to create space for Gutierrez or other attacking options up to this point in the season. And so, yeah, like, maybe got a little bit of finishing luck on the goal itself, but the, like, manner of play and then the way in which, as you say, she got involved to make space for St. George, which was kind of a no-doubter, says it all. And, you know, it's a very funny flow of progression of, like, starting and ending really, really strong, grinding it out in the middle, but still having moments of opportunity in that middle that Denver never got, except for, like, some good finishing work from Yasmin Ryan and Natasha Flint. I mean, like, they had, 5 shots in the box and scored none of them.
Yeah, and a lot of them are, like, really contested or like not particularly good shots. But yes, your point stands.
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to illustrate is that, like, they scored twice, had 5 shots in the box, and none of those goals came from those shots.
Yeah, correct. Melissa Kustler had as quiet a game as she's had in this league.
Oh, yeah. She was not really present at all.
Again, this is what you're going to get from a striker who, again, still early days, things may change, but who really is only an end product striker, at least in this Denver system.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't get any end product, you don't really get anything from your striker in the game, full stop. And that is a striker that can be of value for a team at Denver's level, but is not like the ideal striker to build championship competitor around. I also want to say that like Boston in the midweek kind of pulled a Denver wherein they got 2 early goals and then just invited on a ton of pressure and eventually North Carolina like equalized. Yeah. So they sort of did to Denver what happened to them midweek.
Yeah.
This game is the second game this season where Boston's offense has really looked like it was like humming. Everything else has not looked that way. They've done it with like pretty different lineups, but the things that seem to be working for this Boston team are having pretty mobile attackers ready to receive the ball vertically and wide. So much of Boston's attack came down that right flank with Bianca St. George and Michelle Prince. And then they're looking for cutbacks and crosses.
Yeah.
Almost all of which still came from that right flank, which was, up against Carson Pickett, who was often herself maybe a little overcommitted to attack. I think that the problem of the Sonis Pickett fullback pairing is that it can leave you a little defensively lightweight. Not that either of them are bad defenders, but their commitment upfield is a problem. And what you get in Sheehan and Lynch is not enough additional support to compensate for what's missing.
Yeah. In fact, both of them got really exposed multiple times just for getting caught too high up and then just having oceans of space behind them.
There was consistently a ball entry available to Boston in zone 14, which is going to create a lot of problems for you. And it was coming from wide and it was there. And whether it was Amanda Gutierrez or Barbara Olivieri or Alba Cano coming to receive the ball, there was always somebody there for Boston to like have the numbers. And I was surprised that Nick Cushing didn't really adjust for that in this game. And I think some of that was propped up by the fact that I think Denver was fine with the draw, leaving here with the draw. And then once they got the lead, really didn't compensate for it. And it felt like a real missed opportunity in that sense once the game state was favorable to Denver. But Denver's a limited team. I mean, what do you make of... I think there are a couple of positions that we can highlight here. What do you make of Abby Smith's start to the season? And what do you make of Casey Murphy's start to the season?
Well, Smith is playing like she plays all the time. That is no different than the Abby Smith experience we have been treated to over the years when she's been a starter. Wasn't the best of games from her today. I don't know if I would necessarily like hold that against her long term. And as far as Murphy's concerned, like, maybe Murphy could have done a little bit better on Ryan's goal. Nothing she could have done about Flint's
I don't think anybody saves that Tosh Flint shot. Yeah.
No. But also, like, Murphy has not looked comfortable all year. And unfortunately, that has been the Casey Murphy experience of the last couple of seasons. That has cost Boston at times. Like, Boston's defensive record relative to the XG that they have allowed is pretty stark, and that's come maybe a little bit more in line of late, but it is still a very large gap. Like, they've allowed, about 1.1 XG per game, whereas they've allowed like 1.7 non-penalty goals per game. That's a big, big gap. And
it's a big gap.
A lot of it comes to Murphy for some shot stopping wobbles, but also Murphy just not controlling her area and like snuffing out danger where it would never need to emerge in the first place. And that makes me nervous. Obviously, she was a high profile signing and she still hasn't turned 30. So it's not like she's, some ancient individual, especially for the goalkeeper position. But like, the trend isn't changing. So even though things are small sample this year, it's fitting the Casey Murphy that we've known from North Carolina 2025. It feels unfortunate because Boston, albeit in a really soft schedule has like played pretty well more broadly, except for the fact that like Murphy's coughed some goals up for them.
I'm with you that Casey Murphy has not been strong in net for Boston. I think a lot of it for a goalkeeper is just like, this is a brand new defensive, like the
Sure.
communication's just not there and you can see it.
And that's fine.
And like, that's fine. This may adjust, but also Casey Murphy 2024, a very good goalkeeper. Casey Murphy 2025, a very bad goalkeeper. Casey Murphy 2026, looking a lot more like Casey Murphy 2025,
Yeah.
which is not good for Boston. On the flip side, Abby Smith, who is a very good shot stopper and occasionally like erratic otherwise, has been a very good shot stopper and I think has papered over a lot of the cracks in the Denver defense
Yeah.
with shot stopping. And that's true in this game, but it's been true in a lot of games so far this season. So while I think you can say that Boston probably won't consistently continue to get this level of underperformance from Casey Murphy, Denver will really struggle to maintain this level of overperformance from Abby Smith.
Yeah.
And I think that like why the projection models see Boston and Denver as roughly equivalent despite the difference in how they've been perceived out of the gates is like a lot of it comes down to like the goals they've been conceding and the nature of those goals against the goalkeeping performances that they've received. So like Boston's defense definitely better than their place in the table suggests. Denver's defense definitely worse than their place in the table suggests. And that's not exclusively on the goalkeepers, but this is where like the noisiness of shot stopping really affects you, like in a 7-8 game sample.
Also, it's not like Denver's table positions are that great. They're 13th.
No.
If you go on a points per game basis. So like they're not really overperforming to any like great excess, but like whatever defensive success they have had comes down to Smith, and that should worry you long term. Like, and I don't know how Lindsay Heaps fixes that, but that's always the question
Yep.
that's hanging over the group. And I think also like if the tape is out now on like how their attack operates, if you just starve Melissa Kusler for service, it doesn't seem like they've got a whole hell of a lot, and they have to rely much more on a player like Flint because Ryan and Una McCormack are not the sharpest tools in the shed anymore in terms of generating attack.
Una's young, but yeah, your point stands.
And if Sonis is the like primary like wide attacking function, as good as Janine Sonis is, that's pretty thin gruel if like one component of your front four is someone you can guarantee to like try and get in good shooting positions. And defenses will be fine with that because they can just double up Kusler and say, well, try now. What are you going to do about it? You're going to have to rely on like a fluky chance from Yasmin Ryan or a absolute worldie from Flint out of the box.
Yeah, the problem that I see is that so much of Denver's attack is built down the flanks and is reliant on what you can get from wide play without any sort of stick or quality in the middle, without a lock picker. And now that's where the argument that Lindsay Heaps will change things comes into effect. But I actually think the problem is they have so little going for them in the middle of the park that Lindsay Heaps and her not necessarily extreme mobility anymore, or her desire to be extremely mobile, doesn't necessarily solve your problem, because the best performer in the Denver midfield is Tosh Flint, who is basically playing the Heaps role.
Yeah.
Or like what the Heaps role will be.
And let's be clear, like Data is not smiling kindly on Flint right now. Yes, like she's had some pretty like highlight worthy attacking events, but she's a net negative passer. She's a net negative receiver. She's a net negative dribbler. She is below average both on XG and expected assists generated. Like she's actually not producing a whole hell of a lot, even though her raw results would suggest otherwise. And maybe that turns around. What reason would you think that it would turn around, especially given the supporting cast she's got around her? And yeah, like you say, like Flint and Heaps, then that just becomes a clash of redundant positioning.
Yeah.
So,
and again, like even just bang average production from from the center of the park would dramatically improve Denver. Yeah. What they have right now is not that, and it makes them pretty one-dimensional. And while I think a lot of Denver supporters will probably look at this result and the San Diego result and say, like, Denver, choked both of those wins into losses. Neither of those were necessarily wins or should have been necessarily wins. And that the cumulative effect of not much in the center of the park and a wobbly defense buoyed by a good shot stopping is you're going to like lose a lot of games in less dramatic fashion as opposed to like deserve to eke out, results in, bend don't break situations.
And yet, right after St. George scores a goal, Allie Brazier almost equalizes.
Oh my God. Yeah. She gets a free header. She's historically one of the worst finishers in the league. And that's so unfortunate for her. That is a very challenging header to redirect on goal, but I mean, she makes the right run and it's a good chance. And I think we're both fans of her as a player, but again, there's just such imbalance in this Denver squad construction that you're going to be relying on like individual moments of attacking brilliance as opposed to systematic play. And I'm not convinced Lindsay Heaps will solve that problem.
No. For sure, assuredly not.
On the Boston side, it's kind of a mirror image because the center of the park for them is not a strength either. And like so much of their attacking is less name brand, but is coming wide, and in this game is coming wide via, Bianca St. George.
Yeah. I wonder how that holds up when they start playing better teams on the road,
Yeah.
Because even though, it's not like they've played 6 games, they've played 7 up to this point in the season. It's just like with the schedule being as soft as it has been and with so many of the players still being a black box, except for Gutierrez, or maybe there's enough tape now to say Albacano is like really producing. Ironically, maybe the record is like a little bit more of an honest reflection of like where they are than the peripherals, simply for just like the way that we haven't adjusted the peripherals for some of the surrounding circumstances. I don't know, but I don't think the script has been completely written on Boston just yet.
Yeah, I mean, Hasbo's been great, but a lot of it's buoyed by like on-ball defensive action as opposed to like what she's able to do in transition. But otherwise, yeah, I think you're probably right about that, which is to say Boston against North Carolina, letting them back in the game is probably also an honest representation of what Boston is. Right now, if you had to pick, which of these teams is a playoff team for you?
Well, neither of them are.
Yeah. No. But if you had to pick one to make the playoffs.
The question is like, which ones do you think is going to finish higher in the table, really?
Yeah.
And like, Denver's got a little bit of an edge in the projections at the moment. They're projected for 34 points and Boston's projected for 29. But I actually am now at a point where, strength of schedule stuff notwithstanding, I actually think Boston's going to finish higher than them.
I mean, that's what I picked preseason by a single place. And I felt really bad about that pick for the first handful of weeks. But as Boston what I see them doing, at least in attack, is figuring it out. It kind of comes down to, as best as I can tell, I think Philippa Petau is potentially just a better problem solver than Nick Cushing in these kinds of situations. Not that managers have this massive effect, but Denver, they're not resolving the problem of like, if they don't get something from Kussler, what are they getting? Or if they don't get they don't have like some sort of great plan in attack, whereas I see Philippa Petau like rotating and being mindful about what she can get out of each attacker and what that attacker's role is. We were really concerned about Amanda Gutierrez, like not even starting early in the season. It seems like Amanda Gutierrez is settling into a potentially quite productive attacking role. Albacano, the Ella Stevens, if they can figure out what to do with Ella Stevens, you've got another good attacking piece. Yeah, I think Boston is, neither of these are playoff teams, but if I had to pick one to make the playoffs right now, it's really close because Boston doesn't have the points on the board, but I have more faith in Boston figuring it out and playing stably defensively, and Casey Murphy just like improving to even maybe slightly below league average, solving more problems than the Denver problems that exist.
Yeah. And then the counterpoint, if you're a Denver fan, would be like, well, yeah, Boston's had the easiest schedule and Denver's had one of the hardest schedules. And maybe given like the underlying relative equivalence in talent, that will swing things back in Denver's direction. But I just find Boston more interesting, so I'm just going to subjectively go with that.
Yeah. And like, obviously, if Lindsay Heaps comes and, is great, that will be big for Denver. That will be meaningful for Denver.
Big if. Big if.
If you could sign a player for either team right now, what would you, like if you're trying to fix this team in summer, what are you adding?
I think I want a really proper defensive midfielder for Denver just to like stabilize some things. And theoretically, Emma Regan was supposed to be that, but she hasn't started really at all. And maybe she, Cushing and his staff have just determined that like she's not starter quality at the moment. I don't know. And then for Boston, I don't know.
Kind of the same.
Yeah, maybe the same. I mean, like Annie Carrick hasn't like been bad, I don't think. But yeah, or like maybe like another central defender.
Yeah.
Not that like Emerson Elgin and like Laia Charojo are like have been like so dire relative to expectations, but like maybe just in general, like a little bit of defensive depth for Boston, at potentially multiple positions.
Yeah, for me, I'm with you on Denver. Just absolutely needs like a ball playing six that gives you an option to not always go wide. Obviously, like Emma Regan should get a run of games based on what she's done in other leagues. But maybe the gap between the leagues is large enough that they just don't feel like she can handle that jump. I mean, Tosh Flint has also made a league jump, and it seems like it's hit or miss, but buoyed by some really good finishing.
Mm-hmm.
I think for them, yeah, it's a 6, and I kind of think it's a 6 or an 8 for Boston, just because right now their defense is. I mean, it's that or you get another goalkeeper if you really don't think Casey Murphy can.
Oh, well, they're not going to do that.
Yeah, they're not going to do that. But like, we're talking like sober-minded about just like looking at the thing. Yeah, I think it's probably a 6 or an 8 for Boston.
Yeah,
but I don't have any problem with the center back. Yeah,
and I like maybe more the idea of an 8 just to like have another progressive option that isn't Josephine Hasbo.
Yeah, that's right.
Or something. So yeah, but again, like Boston is just such a weird. They're just such a weird duck because everybody's learning. There are just so many learnings going on with each passing week.
Constant learnings,
and we love learning with you, listener, viewer. Thanks for joining us for our featured game of the week. We will be back on main feed next week again with this dual episode structure. If you're not yet a member of our Patreon, please click the link in the show notes. $6 a month gets you 4 bonus episodes plus Discord access, discounts on exclusive XOG merch, and a whole lot more. And speaking of merch, click the link to the XOG store where you can get limited edition XOG scarves, as well as a lot of other cool merch. Patreon subscribers, there's a little discount code for you in your Patreon feed for that. Follow us on social media at XOwnGoals. That's the letter X Own Goals on all platforms. Exclusive video content coming to YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok that you won't find on the normal podcast content. Rate us 5 stars, drop a kind review, and tell all your friends about us wherever you listen to or watch podcasts. And if you think we've made an own goal, please email us at xog@xowngoals.com. That's the letter xog@xowngoals.com. Back with you on Patreon on Thursday to talk about the second leg of the UEFA Women's Champions League semifinal. And back with you on main feed to talk all NWSL action next week.
Bye.